pregnancy. And I'm like, oh my God, I felt like such a freaking failure. Like I was leaving her, oversleeping and leaving her at school and stuff. And it was so crazy. Like I wanted everybody to know I really am a good mother. Like it was just too much on me. It was too much. So I ended up stopping rapping, and that was about maybe 2010 ish. I still would spit a verse every now and then. Like, I can't stop. I can't stop if I get a little melody in my head. So 2011 came, and that's when I actually found out that I was losing my eyesight. Well, I knew something was going on because I couldn't see that clearly. I knew I used to be able to see clear across the room, and then all of a sudden, like, I can't hardly see, like, right in front of my face or anything. And it had got to the point where I couldn't see my hands, like the texture of my hands. I couldn't see my feet. And even like being close to a mirror, I couldn't see my face that well. I'm like, I can't. And deep thoughts in my head used to be like, oh my gosh, one day I'm not going to be able to see my daughter's face. Like, that's what used to scare me. One day not being able to see her face and see what she looks like. So, but how I ended up, I knew something was happening, but I had went to several doctors, and they told me all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, you have to get a whole bunch of opinions. But I did try to get a whole bunch of opinions. I used to pay top dollar for all these different glasses, and I would get the glasses and then I can't see. And then the people didn't even want to give me a refund. So end up eventually, I had to go in and take an eye exam for my driver's license. When I took that eye exam, I failed. And they did not actually take my driver's license right away. What they ended up doing, they gave me an extension and they said, you have to see an eye doctor to resolve this. If you don't resolve it, then we're going to, permanently, suspend your license. So I got really scared because I'm like, I tried so many times to go to doctors. They keep telling me all this crazy stuff and nobody knows what's wrong. They're telling me I have a lazy eye. They're telling me this. They're telling me I worked under fluorescent lights too long. And then one is telling me I damaged one eye. What did you do to damage your eye? Just don't do it to the other. And I'm like, I never got any answers. So this is how God actually saved me. Because let me tell you, he saved me many times. He take care of children and fools. Like, I'm not saying I'm a fool, but I done did some crazy foolish stuff, and he always watched over me. So my little sister, she was like, oh, well, you can go to my eye doctor. And I'm thinking in my head, yeah, what's the point? I done been to all these freaking doctors and ain't nobody ever been able to help me. So I sit down, the nurse looks and she's like, look at the little hot air balloon. And I said, okay, I look at the hot air balloon. And she's like, could you look at the hot air balloon? And I said, I am looking at the hot air balloon. And she's like, no, you're not. She goes and get a second nurse. Nurse is like, look at the little hot air balloon. And I'm like, I'm looking at the little hot air balloon. I see it. It's right there. I described it and everything. And she's like, you don't see it. She said, I see what you see in your eye and you don't see it. I'm like, oh my God. Now I know it was really blurry, but I seen this freaking hot air balloon. They go get the doctor. I'm like, oh gosh, something's going on. The doctor sits down and he looks into my eyes and he's like, hmm. You know when they make them noises that you don't want to hear? You like, what? And he's like, oh, I got good news and bad news. Don't you love when you hear that from a doctor? I got good news and bad news. He's like, oh, you're going blind, but there's help because we have a contact that we can make for you. And I'm like, oh. huh? Like that was a lot to take in. But he was like, basically, that's when I found out I have this weird behind disease called keratoconus, where your cornea starts to protrude out so far that eventually it bursts. Imagine a boiled egg, how they point out, and if you squeeze them, keep putting pressure on them, eventually the side of the boiled egg will bust open. That's what's happening to my eyeballs. Both of them. One is far progressed, the left eye progressed. I see like bursts of light, some little circle shapes and stuff like that, but I don't see much out of that. I rely solely on my right eye with the contact. Without the contact, I am completely, I just see colors and shapes. I can make out some things. And being blind for a while and not having any solutions, like you come up with ways to get around things. Like I remember people's shapes, like their silhouettes and stuff. And I could see how the figure moves. Like people walk in different ways. And I was a cashier. Crazy. I was a cashier, but I had remembered the whole cash register. Now, I used to hope I was giving them the right change back, but my drawer always came out right because I knew where all the money went, like where each, money slot was. So that's how I was able to, and when I had to drive, if I like push my eye in a certain way, just a certain way, I can see. So the whole time I was driving, and I know this is dangerous, and I will never, ever, ever, ever do this again. Woo! But the whole time I was driving, I would just be pressing my eye down in that manner so that I can see. That's how I used to drive. And when I got them contacts, I wear hard contacts. They feel, I'm gonna tell you, they feel like Coke bottles, like glass just cutting across your eye. They hurt, they give you headaches and everything. But when I take them jokers out, I can't see. So I don't even want to be awake if I can't see. And so I leave them in as much as I can. I rock with them as much as I can, but sometimes them things will have you crying. So when I put that contact in the first time, and I could see. I hadn't seen in years. I hadn't seen I looked at my hands. I seen how wrinkled the hands were getting. I seen my feet and I seen my face in the mirror. I was like, girl, am I really starting to get like dark circles under my eyes? Like, I didn't see that. I still thought I was cute. And I seen my daughter's face. Oh, I once was blind, but now I see. Ooh, that ain't never been more true. We get up to 2013. 2013, I was still working at that super center. It had been almost a decade, and I hated it, hated it, hated it. My daughter was a little older. I think by then she must have been like 12. So she was getting ready to go to middle school. And it wasn't as hard. Like with her going to school, like it was so difficult being, raising her alone. You know how it went when I was in hair school, but later, like when she was in elementary and stuff, it was like I would get off of work and I would be like, "Come on, honey, let's get ready so that we can go to school and our mommy can go to sleep." And I had the most active child in the world. She did not want to just get ready. She did not. Like she would be jumping around. I'm like, please, honey, come on, we gotta get ready. We gotta and it was a challenge. And I would be so freaking sleepy. It was times that I overslept and she would be late to school. And then once I dropped her off, it was times that I overslept and kind of missed the little bus route, the little car loop, and they would take her back up to the office and I didn't show up. And they was like, ma'am, if you do this one more time, we are gonna, I think they call it truancy. And I'm like, oh my God, I felt like such a freaking failure. Like I was leaving her, oversleeping and leaving her at school and stuff. And it was so crazy. Like, I wanted everybody to know I really am a good mother. Like, it was just too much on me. It was too much. But I wanted everybody to know I really was a good mother. So when they told me that, I'm like, no. I started sleeping like in a chair, like, or whatever position I could sleep in that was so freaking uncomfortable that I only slept about 2 hours. So sometimes I used to go to the couch and I would kneel like I'm praying, and I literally slept like that, like kneeling on the couch, sleep, because I knew the minute my knees went to sleep, I would wake up. Or I would sleep sitting up in a chair because I could not oversleep and leave her anymore. It was so hard. Like, and if only he could have been here to help me. If only. So, back to 2013. I'm still at this super center. I feel like the biggest failure in freaking life. Like, honestly, I felt so low. How did I even end up here? My body's breaking down. I'm freaking blind. I didn't amount to nothing. I don't have much money. And he's not nowhere near coming home. So this was like a really sad, depressing, like, if any of the other years weren't depressing, this was very depressing. So I always loved music. And one day I was going to a Ice Cube concert. Oh, finally Ice Cube comes to Orlando. It's a Cadillac.